Welcome to the Emotional Balance Sheet Podcast, your guide to help you manage life, money, and multiples. Each episode, host Paul Fenner, Tama Capital's president and founder, and the proud parent of 4 amazing children, including 1 set of triplets, will provide insights on successfully sustaining an active lifestyle, career, and family through comprehensive wealth management strategies, financial education, and lifestyle planning, specific to parents raising twins, triplets, and more. Learn more, subscribe to the show, or connect with Paul at tamacapital.com.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of TAMA may retain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
What is the difference between seizing an opportunity and not? The ability to take action in the face of fear and anxiety. Husband, father, and serial entrepreneur Justin Bright has believed in himself to start not only 1, but 3 businesses within the last 10 years. One of which he launched last year during the COVID pandemic. Justin felt that he had something to offer in starting each of these 3 businesses, which are all in completely different industries and unrelated to each other. Like most entrepreneurs that I've met, Justin has this innate mindset to persist, be consistent, and have an ability to always figure things out when challenges arise, which they always do when running a small business. According to Justin, having a powerful mindset is a powerful asset. Passing the bus test, as Justin describes it, meant that he was doing everything necessary to prepare his business and family for the unfortunate day that he may not be there for both of them. A noble endeavor that was cemented by a conversation that he had with his oldest son. Please enjoy my conversation with Justin Bright. So I think the best place to start is, I think the genesis behind the podcast has been focusing on people with a lot of life transitions. And then in our earlier conversation, you had mentioned, how you got to where you're at today. This interesting 3 businesses you've helped develop along with your wife. But I think the place to start is to give our audience a little bit of background on how you ended up here from where you started from in your corporate career, and what led through those life transitions. What led you to starting your first company?
Straight out of college, I was actually an assistant golf pro at Indywood Country Club. Thought I was going to, play golf the rest of my life. My wife got pregnant with our first son on our honeymoon, basically. And I made $8,000 that summer. And I was like, well, you can't raise a kid on $8,000, so I have got to go get a big boy job. And that led me into the corporate world, where my first job was with Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And I'm going to tell you right now, anybody that's coming out of college and wants to learn customer service, learn about collections, selling, the whole gamut of running a business, they give you that opportunity. Enterprise Rent-A-Car does an absolutely amazing job of training their employees. 100%. If you can get past wearing a suit and washing cars and look at the opportunity, it's a really, really good opportunity for kids out of college. And I learned everything for the most part about customer service that I instill in all 3 of my companies today from Enterprise.
Justin, what made that program unique and special? Because you're not the first person that has told me about that. I mean, their training program is pretty well known, but along the lines of what you just nailed, hit on, can you pinpoint like a few things that made that, program really stand out?
Well, it's the first place that I got sales training, where they pull you to the side with other people. And if you did what they asked of you, I was promoted at 6 months to assistant manager. At 8.5 months, I was the fastest guy in Metro Detroit to branch manager. But it comes down to basically their slogan, right? their slogan is, if you're not, we want every customer to be completely satisfied every single time. And that's how everybody is gauged in their branches, by being completely satisfied. And they're completely random surveys that they do. And pretty much everything that you get graded on, or how you get promoted, comes down to how you sell and how your customer service scores come back. And if your customer service scores don't come back well, you don't do well. And it really teaches you that if you want to keep customers long term, or if you want customers return, or you want customers to give you referrals, it comes from the customer service side of it. And I have built all three of my companies around that. It's very, very good.
So what specifically do they teach about selling or customer service that sticks out? Because I mean, I've run it from enterprise before, and there's no hard sale or anything like that.
I'll say in the last 10 years, they've gone away from the real hard sell, because they used to sell really hard, and it was a real hard push on all their ancillary products. And they've kind of gotten away from that, which I think has helped their customer service scores too. But it's just that mindset. You're going to ask the question, are you completely satisfied? And you're going to, make sure that if you have that mindset that the customer is going to be happy no matter what. Doesn't mean if you have to write something off to make them happy, or if you have to do something extra or upgrade them or whatever it might be, find a way to make sure they're happy. Over deliver. Always over deliver. And I'm not saying under promise either. Promise what you can do, and then over deliver on that promise.
So from enterprise, you kind of bounced around with some other corporations as well. So how did you end up in logistics, and which is the first business that you founded? Walk us through what led you through that life transition to go from corporate logistics into, I'm going to start my own logistics firm. So
Paul, in 2008, right? We all know what happened in Metro Detroit and Michigan as a whole in 2008. I was working in the staffing industry and doing fairly well for myself. And guess what? All the jobs went away. So did mine. And so I was let go, I think June, July, somewhere in there. And I got an opportunity with another large freight broker, and they were opening a branch for the first time in Michigan. I was one of the first classes hired in, and that was, I was actually sitting in a tree hunting up in northern Michigan, where I grew up, and I took the phone call, and I got an opportunity to make $30,000 a year, and I just needed to get back to work, and I went back to work. And the opportunity was great. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I'd never done inside sales before. I'd always done outside sales or sales management and those kind of things. So I'd never really picked up a phone and, dialed for dollars, for lack of better words. Right. And, that's exactly what it was. I thought it was funny. I'm like, who's going to buy from you on the phone? And a lot of people. It's amazing how many people buy from people on the phone. So, and Echo, I went to Echo Global, and they're a great company, a wonderful company. Again, taught me a ton of things.
So what exactly were you selling as far as like logistics goes?
So as a freight broker, what we're selling is you're basically selling your rate, customer service, and we don't own any trucks, and we don't have any of our own freight, right? So we're the middleman, and we have these contracts with a lot of the LTL carriers and, tens of thousands of truckload carriers out there. And, so we move truckload, we move LTL, expedite, we can do Canada, we can do Canada to the U.S., Mexico to the U.S. At some point it has to touch the U.S.
Okay. So you're calling on whatever various manufacturing companies for
100%.
and trying to get them to work with you guys, and then you connect them with the in freight people.
Yeah, like a YRC, or RNL or Pitt, Ohio, or Dayton Freight, or Roadrunner, right? These are a lot of the LTL carriers that we use. Or you'll see now you'll be driving down the road and you'll start to notice them, and then you'll see like a Schneider who's a truckload carrier, or I'm trying to think of another one. XPO is another LTL carrier. Those are people that we have contracts with that we resell our rates back to the customer.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So those the truckload companies like XPO, they're in essence, depending on you're basically an extension of their sales team, if you will. Right?
Yeah.
Is that the way?
If it makes sense for that lane for them, or those things? Yeah, absolutely. We help sell, probably at a lower margin back to them than they would with their own salespeople. But now you have all these extra salespeople working for you to help fill your trucks, right? So it's called a third-party logistics company is what we are. So you have the carrier, which is one part of that party, and then you have the customer, the second part of that party, and we're the third party to make it happen.
Okay, got it. So you're working at Echo, and then what transpired for you to decide maybe I should start my own firm and do this on my own? What was that? What was that tipping point?
The tipping point was Echo does a lot of things really well, but it comes back to going back to enterprise and the customer service part of it, and understanding and the ability that enterprise gave their employees to make decisions on the go that I just didn't have. And so we're going back 5 years to when I was working for enterprise, and I'm there, and I'm growing, and I quickly become their the number one salesman in Michigan, and I'm doing really well, and I need to grow, but because they put so many other things on you, like you got to do the collections, you got to do the claims, you got to do all these other like ancillary things. I couldn't make my sales calls to grow, and I battled with them just a little bit. They really didn't want to give me a person to help do that. So I started looking, and that's when I learned about like I could go out and do it on my own. And I'm like, well, if I can do it here, I can duplicate it there, and it worked out really, really well. Obviously, but here we are 11 years later.
So with your firm, Brighter Logistics, and this will be the first firm that we talk about, because I mentioned when we started our conversation, there's 3 that you own or own jointly with your wife. So with Brighter Logistics, are you doing along the same lines as what you were doing at Echo, or completely different?
It's completely the same. It's Echo does exactly what I do. They have some things that they can do better than I can, just because they're flat out bigger. But I mean, for the most part, we are a direct competitor of theirs. I had a non-compete, and I followed it to a T, and went out and started. I did it right. I followed the rules and had no issues. And it's the right way to do things. If you feel like you can really go out and make a difference, or go out and do it on your own. I graduated from Central Michigan University with an entrepreneurship degree, and it has worked out in my benefit. So, 100%, we're a direct competitor of Echo, though.
Okay, so you've had Brighter Logistics for 11 years now, I think you said?
Yeah, August of 2010.
Okay. So how has COVID this last year impacted Brighter Logistics? What's that been like?
We have been on an absolute tear with all 3 companies, but with Brighter Logistics, Paul, we so March is when everything started in 2020, right? Middle of March, basically. I had to lay off a few people. Nobody knew what was going to happen. I laid a few people off. April, they were off most of April. And I got aggressive in late April, early May. I brought everybody back. I said, here's what I'm going to do. I doubled down. I put my money where my mouth was, hired some more people, and I hired them in person too. On top of that, they were at the office. um, and guess what? We've more than doubled the size of our company since April of last year. We're an absolute tear. We're opening up, 50, 60, 70 new accounts a month. And there were so many opportunities during COVID that nobody wants to talk about because everybody, the people that didn't do well, I'm gonna take like gyms and and the poor guys and the gyms and restaurants and take them out of the equation. But boy, if you saw the opportunities in 2020, they were there, and they were there big time, and we took advantage. And
Can you give us a couple examples of what those opportunities were like, Justin?
So, the opportunity was don't let the fear of what was happening in the media shut you down. And the media it still is. It was the fear that they were instilling everybody that you couldn't work at your office, you couldn't do this, and everybody's small business was not doing well and everything else, and it was all this and like there's nothing out there. Well, we got more aggressive. I hired a sales manager for the first time, like, because I always thought I could do it. But I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to take this next step, I'm going to take the next step. And that accountability of my salespeople, I hired a couple more salespeople, and then it just took off. And it was just being aggressive, Paul. It was just one of those things where, I know a lot of small business owners in and around Macomb County, and outside of ones that are and there's even been some restaurants, people I know that have done really, really well too, where their numbers were through the roof. Is because they didn't just shut down. And look at what's going on in the market with the homes and the mortgages, car sales. You can't even get, like, there's more money in the economy right now than there's ever been, and it's out there. It's just go find it, go get it. It's theirs for the taking. I mean, you can't buy a house right now that you want because it's already sold before it hits the market.
Yeah, one of my good friends who's a realtor who was over last evening, she's lost Jillian Mutafis, who I had on the show late last year, and I'll link to her conversation in the show notes because she went through a lot of life transitions. But she gave me a couple examples where her clients are they'll put $50,000 over the asking price and get outbid because the winning bid came in at $100,000 over the asking price. And I was talking with another family that I work with out in Arizona, and it's like this across the country because they were here in Michigan and they moved out back to Arizona. And he was asking me, what's it like in Michigan? I'm like, it's the same thing.
Everywhere.
It's
yeah. So I think I was telling you when we talked the other day that my son is getting ready to play Division I baseball down in Charleston Southern University down there in Charleston, South Carolina. And we're looking at buying a house down right there. And it's unreal. Like, you better make a decision. And we're not down there. So we're like, we can't. So we're holding tight right now until we probably move him in and go down there and do that. Right. So everywhere. Again, it just comes down to fear, I think. And it's scary enough and has enough pressures of being an entrepreneur and doing all those things, where don't let the outside sources tell you that it's even worse, right? Go for what you want and take chances. I've taken huge chances in my life. We opened up this third company in 2020, September 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, right? You want to talk about taking some chances. I put a very sizable amount of my own personal money into opening up 2 branches of this. And that's the thing. It's like, I saw an opportunity. Am I where I want to be yet? No, but it takes time to grow a business, So for anybody out there that's like listening and doing those kind of things, like, man, if you feel like you can do it, go for it. I'm helping a young man right now try to get everything in line to get his off the ground, and telling him he just needs to pull the trigger.
So I want to come back to the story on your son. We'll kind of save that for hopefully the end of our conversation. But I think that the place to pivot to right now is to talk about the other two businesses that you have, and then more specifically, the relationship. This may sound, I don't know how this will sound, but the relationship you have with your wife, because I find it really fascinating and interesting where I'm having a conversation with business owners and it's a husband and wife. You know, marriage is tough enough, but when you layer on the fact that you're also business partners as well, it takes it to another level.
Yeah.
Another level, Justin.
I can't tell you, Paul, how many times I've fired her. But
how many times has she fired you?
Yeah, she's way more passive than I am. No, my wife Wendy is an amazing human to be able to put up with me and be with me at the office, and especially when we've had our businesses have their ups and their downs, and when it gets tight and you don't know what's going to happen, right? So we have worked together since 2010, right? And that's in the same office, the same space. When we were getting logistics off the ground, we started in our parents' basement. So add that into with my in-laws, right? That's where we started. So listen, I taught her how to sell via the phone. She did an amazing job. She's just a people pleaser, so it was really easy for her, where she just kind of rolled in and was able to make phone calls, because a lot of people don't like to call. After I got her past the fear of calling, it became natural for her. And women do very well in the sales world if they can learn how to just talk to people. And she did very well. She has a very good book of business that's still today, because so the first time in 11 years, we're not working in the same office every day, which is interesting. So, but then in 2018, I doubled down, and for the first time where she really got upset with me, and we started the cleaning company, and that's where it got interesting. Logistics was rolling. I was driving down M59, and we were trying to hire somebody to clean our house because we had just let go a couple months prior to the house cleaner that we had. And I'm driving down M59 heading east, and I got one cleaning company past me, another cleaning company past me, another one cleaning me, and I go like, well, dang, it's time to start a cleaning company, because I couldn't get anybody to come out to my house and give me a quote, or even give me a quote over the phone. Nobody would even do it. They're so busy, they couldn't do it. So I said, well, there's got to be an opportunity. And I told my wife what I was going to do. And she goes, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not cleaning. I'm not doing it. I don't want anything to do with it. Well, here we are almost 3 years later, because that was August of 18. And so she's cleaned a lot of apartments, a lot of homes. And she basically heads that up underneath or above our office manager. And there were a lot of fights there. There were a lot of good times. There's been a lot of good stuff too. But again, she's so patient with me. And I think that's what makes it work, is her patience, because I don't have as much as she does. And again, it is interesting. It has been, it's been trying, but we try when we go home to separate it, but that doesn't always happen either.
So you answered my question, which was going to be, how did you go from logistics business to cleaning service business? So you answered that one for me. So what's COVID been like for the cleaning business? Because were you guys still going into people's homes or businesses?
March and April, May, really, we lost a lot of homes. There were still some that we were going into. We were considered essential. Both my companies actually at that point were considered essential. And but we lost a lot of homes. What kept us really moving forward is staying aggressive. And we do a lot of apartment turnover cleans as well. So there was a lot of people still moving in and out and all that. So we were doing a ton of that. But actually in 2020, we tripled the size of our company in 2020. It was amazing. Um, we doubled down on the amount of money we were spending on marketing. We have a great, so anybody out there, I'm going to give them a good plug, but if you're in the home industry or doing anything like that, I strongly recommend giving my guy Tony Sintage over at Valpak a call, and Maria over there. They've been amazing to work with. We doubled down and sometimes even tripled what we were spending in marketing dollars. We sent so many postcards out. On top of that, we just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And we're still on that path right now.
Yeah, I'll be sure to get his contact information, and we can link that into the show notes for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, Tony and Maria are great. I think anybody that that's if you're your garage doors or your pest control or whatever, right? And something like that, they do a great job. They know what they're doing. They're on top of it. The tracking that you can do to every call is unreal. And again, but yeah, with cleaning, again, we stayed aggressive. We got even more aggressive. We hired an office manager in 2020. So let me take a quick step back, if you don't mind, real quick.
Sure.
I kind of look at entrepreneurship maybe a little bit different than some do. And this was kind of run at me back about 5-6 years ago when somebody came into my business and said, Justin, are you a business owner, or are you an entrepreneur, or are you the head of a business? And I said, well, I'm the head of the business. He goes, okay, well, if you got hit by a bus right now, would your business still continue to succeed? And I looked at him and I was like, holy crap, we probably wouldn't succeed. So we started taking more of trying to pass the bus test. I don't know if you've ever heard it called that, but if your business can pass the bus test. And so we have an office manager with logistics, and then, like I said, we hired a sales manager. So that company, like right now, I'm sitting up at one of our locations for my third company, and I know that business will still open new accounts and it will do everything. I don't have to be there. Now I'm very, very much involved and I do a lot of stuff every day, but I could leave tomorrow and I know that they would be okay. It would still, I could pass that bus test and my wife and my kids would still be okay. And that was a big step. That's where now, it's really freed some stuff up. So what we did in 2020 with the cleaning company is we put an office manager in place. I still can't pass the bus test with that company yet completely. We have another step to be able to pass that, and that's going to be putting a general manager in place, right? I put a GM in place. Now, guess what? It's a true running company that, yes, I'm going to head it up and I'm going to have my wife, make decisions and do those kind of things. But at that point, then it can run without us. Now we're no longer creating a job for ourselves, right? It's now running a business. And that is my goal when I start new companies, is to get it to that point. And, it'll probably be right around 3 years in business for cleaning one. So we're shooting for August to be able to hire a GM. Mm-hmm. So it'll be 3 years, and then again, it'll be a business that can run itself and pass the bus test and start to make profit with, those kind of, people in place. So they're expensive, employees are expensive, but employees are the only way you can grow a business. But you still have to keep a very close eye on what they're doing and how they're doing it, making sure that they're doing the customer service the way I want it done, because not everybody sees it the same way. So there's still a lot of training that goes involved. My office manager for logistics, unreal. She's amazing. She's been with us 10 of the 11 years. She's amazing, but she knows what I want. So she knows what we need to do to make things happen.
This actually is a great point, because it leads into one of my next questions was going to be, how has it been for you getting new employees? Because in working with businesses that I work with at TAMA, it's been really difficult. And I talk to other business owners as well. And one of the big challenges right now has been getting employees. Are you facing that as well?
It has been, Paul. It is. It is unreal hard. We can post on Indeed and maybe get 3 resumes, maybe get 5, and then we'll post again. Then we'll get a bunch. For the cleaning company right now, I could hire 10 to 15 people. I'm trying to hire 5 salespeople for logistics. I'm trying to hire for Brighter Performance Recovery. I'm trying to hire a couple more people there. Like, we're all in that boat. And again, I think this comes back to, our government is making it way too easy for people to sit at home on their bum and not do anything. And, that's unfortunate because, like you just said, everybody that I talk to in the small business world, they all are trying to hire. There are very few that are not. And it's really, really hard, really hard. And I wish now I might be a little bit different because I actually read a post today by somebody I do some networking with. And she's like, her husband runs a business and, he's trying to hire people, but they're turning jobs down. I don't turn anything down. I just figure it out. Right. And I'm going to continue to grow and figure it out and know that at some point it's going to open up. It's going to. And when those floodgates open, I want to be at the front of that line. I want to have the most business ready to go and, make things happen for myself and know that I'm ready.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting phenomenon about this current situation is, being an entrepreneur, a business owner, it'd be really hard to turn down opportunities in business. It just goes against your nature. And whether you have the people or not, to your point, you just figure it out. And I feel like that's a lot of how I've built Tama is I've just figured it out. I try not to turn down opportunities. They got to be the right opportunities, but I have a hard time, turning away somebody that I know I could help, maybe because, I don't have the time. Like, I'll figure it out.
And I think that is the exact reason that I think some people are successful and some people aren't as successful as they could be in business. And I'm not gonna, hate on anybody for the way that they run their business because that's their business and they get to run that however they want to run it. Right. That's kind of how I view the world. Right. Whatever you want to do to your body, you do to your body, and however you want to run your business, you do it to your business. Right. So, but I think the difference between the people that really become successful are persistence is number 1, consistency is number 2, and then the ability to figure it out when you don't know what's really kind of moving and shaking, but you just figure it out. Like, I knew nothing about the cleaning world, nothing. I had zero, like, logistics. I knew something about it. I had some background in it. I know nothing about cleaning. And here we are, like I said, almost 3 years later, and we're killing it. Like, am I where I want to be? Shoot, not even close, And I kind of had that mentality of, and I think this drives some people insane about me, but I have a mentality of I'll probably never be satisfied. That doesn't mean I'm not happy. I'm an incredibly happy human, but I'm just not satisfied, right? And I think that's what takes certain businesses to the next level and keeps helping them get better and get better. I'll turn 42 years old this year, and it might sound weird, but for the longest time in my life, I never felt like I was truly accomplishing what I could accomplish. I always, and I guess for lack of better words, thinking that I was better than others at business or better than others, and I wasn't there, and I'm starting to get there, and I'm like, but now I'm starting to feel that. But now I'm getting a taste of like bigger success, and it just makes me that much hungrier. I am like, eat, sleep. I left my son's baseball game last night. I went right straight back to the office, and I won't miss anything of my kids ever. Never have. I've coached them through everything, right? And that's part of that's there's a long stint there where the business kind of just hindered there because I wouldn't miss my kids stuff. But now my kids are older, and I have more time. And I am like, but again, during COVID this year, I mean, from March 15th until because nobody was doing anything, my kids couldn't do anything. All the way through into the new year, I was working 100-hour work weeks. It's because I wanted to. It wasn't because I had to, because I wanted to.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
Yes. And I think that's a big part of it, with your company, Paul, that's what you're talking about. You figured it out. Like you want to do better. Persistence, consistency, and then the ability to kind of figure it out and have like that passion, like that true passion for what you do. And it's not even about like the industry that I'm in. I love figuring things out. Like I'm figuring out this third company right now. I'm figuring it all out. And I have some people that are driving me. Megan Dimmer, who is coming back to Michigan, and she's running another chapter of Vistage here in Michigan. And she's helping me figure it out, and she's pushing me to like figure out why I'm not where I want to be. Well, we're 8 months old, so we're not very old, but like she's pushing me, and I need that sometimes. And I'm like digging in, and like I'm going, this is fun. Like I love this. Like I love figuring it out.
Yeah, I think along those lines, Justin, if you didn't like what you were doing or had a passion behind it, you wouldn't be able to do those 100-hour work weeks.
Not even like, no, you couldn't. And, I did it. I did those work weeks when I was working in the golf industry because, again, I loved it, back in the day. And, but it broke down to like 7 cents an hour. But, but it was something I truly loved. And, everybody's like always asking too today. They're like, do you still play a lot of golf? I'm like, I might play 5 or 6 times a year in charity stuff because my kids are doing stuff and I just don't have the time. And, but again, if you love it or you love the process of it, and you learn to love the process, like that's when things really happen. And that's, my kids are starting to learn to love the process for what they're doing. So,
yeah, well, it's funny because you and I are just getting to know each other, and I didn't know about your golf story, and I don't know if I necessarily shared mine with you. And it's ironic that your son's going to be in Charleston because when I graduated from undergrad and at Adrian College in '98, my first job out of college was working at the ocean course at Kiowa Island.
Oh, okay.
And that was my dream to go into golf course management. I knew I didn't have the game to make it on any tour or anything like that, but that's where I wanted to be. And it didn't work out. And I get that question often. I ended up basically stopped playing golf. And I played, maybe half a dozen rounds a year now, if I'm lucky, with neighbors that, push me to get out or in a charity event or something like that. So we definitely share that common thread. But to me, I don't find golf, for the longest time, I didn't find golf enjoyable because I was so competitive and I had skills and I could play at a higher level. And when you don't play, those skills go away and it becomes more frustrating than it is, happiness.
I'm right. You and I are two peas in a pod right there because, again, my competitive nature, like it's hard to find somebody more competitive than I am. And it's the same thing. I step on that golf course and I expect to go out and shoot 70, and when I shoot 82, I'm not an overly happy human. But I will say, as I've gotten older, last 3-4 years, I've learned how to like go out and have a few beers or a few drinks and actually enjoy it. Where I've actually started walking again, and then just kind of getting back to the roots and playing that way, and actually trying to enjoy it and not play competitively. I get asked to play in like, because I joined a country club for a little while because I thought it would force me to play. And it didn't. I didn't play anymore. I spent a lot of money to not play. But, they have all these side games and these guys are all playing this stuff. Oh, you got to come play with us, blah, blah. And I turned every one of them down because I knew by the end of the round, I'd want to break every club I had because I'd be losing money and that would drive me insane. And I wouldn't be having fun because it was too competitive. Like when I get to a point again back in my life where I can play 3-4 times a week and practice and hit putts and do those kind of things. Yeah, guess what? Then yes, maybe put me back in, coach, and I'll be ready to play. But yeah, right now, I know that I'm just going to go out and have fun. It is what it is. So
let's pivot now into your last business, this third business that you've started, Brighter Performance Recovery, right?
Yes.
I get that right? So tell us about what this business is. And again, how did you end up in this type of industry? Because all three of your businesses are completely different industries, not related to each other at all.
They are, all polar opposites. They're completely different, with the same common background, though. Customer service is key to all of it. So Brighter Performance Recovery, we offer cryotherapy, compression therapy, infrared sauna, oxygen bar, and Mark Pro, which is electric stim. And what this is about, taking care of your body and helping people recover from injury, helping people recover just from aches and pains as they get older, like I do, and my knee will bother me or my back or whatever, right? So a couple years ago, my oldest, he was a 3-sport athlete up until his senior year, and he was playing football, second game of the season, trying to run through a tackle, and something happened in his knee. We went and had an MRI. He had a slight tear in his LCL, right? Talked to the doctor. I'm like, I don't want to do surgery. I think he's too young. I think he goes, well, let's see what happens. So what we did is we found this place and we started doing cryotherapy and compression therapy. And we had him on a treadmill running, like a weightless treadmill, and doing all this. It was incredible. We had him back on the football field in 4 weeks. That's part of being young, right? Where you can
recuperate
a little bit. And that's where I learned about it. And it was interesting, as I was getting ready to start this company, I was doing some research and going through my own emails, and I had thought about it and I had forgotten about doing it then when he was doing it. Like I kind of did some research on opening one, and I just backed off for whatever reason. And I wasn't aggressive at that point. An opportunity through the South Oakland A's baseball organization came, where the guy that runs the organization came to me. He's like, hey, we got this extra space. What do you think? Who can we lease it out to? Because the backside is all baseball here in Rochester Hills. And then the front side is where we opened our first location. And I looked at it and I'm like, I know exactly what this is going to be. And he goes, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, I'm going to do it. Like, I got this idea. And I said, and I didn't tell him right then, but I'm like, let me go back and do some research. I have some ideas. And he's like, well, will you be the guy on the lease and, lease the building so we can then lease back to me, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, let me think about it. Give me a little bit. So I went back, Paul. I went back to my desk, drove back down to Clinton Township, and sitting at my desk, and I'm on eBay, of all places, looking at used cryo machines. It sat open on my desk for about 3 hours, and I bought a used cryo machine that day. So I was committed financially, big time, because they're not cheap, and I was committed at that point, and I follow my gut instinct and see what happens. And again, I pulled the trigger, and I think that's where a lot of people have these ideas about business that they're going to do something, and they just don't pull the trigger, right? They always get stuck. So many companies get stuck in that planning and thinking about it and writing out a business plan and then doing all that. And then they never pull the trigger. They just sit on it. And obviously I kind of did the same thing 2 years ago, because I didn't realize it until I started doing research and I'm like, oh yeah, I did this. And I'm like, and here I was 2 years later, and boom. And I went for it. I'm like, obviously it's hit me a second time. There's got to be a reason for this. Do it.
Yeah, I see that a lot with what I do and working with families on the wealth management side. And I think the other thing to go along with what you said, Justin, is that fear. Like, so many people that I've talked to or worked with over the last 10 years in the field of wealth planning, people get so paralyzed by the fear that they don't take that first step. So it's either they're paralyzed by fear or it's analysis paralysis. Like, they think they have to have everything lined up before they pick up the phone to call me or to, work with anybody for that matter and take that first step. And I completely agree with you on that. I think that's one of the more interesting things I found out about being an entrepreneur myself and speaking with people like you that are entrepreneurs and business owners, is that for whatever reason, you're able to overcome that fear and not have to have every T crossed and I dotted. You've got enough of the information. Let's go. Let's roll with it.
And I think that comes down to, I bet if you surveyed 100 of those people that you've talked to have gotten over that fear, I would be willing to bet that it's the way that they live their life as a positive human and only allow positive things around them for as much as possible. Positivity is powerful. Being positive and staying in that positive mindset, and knowing when you have people around you that are not positive and realize that they're not good for you and moving on from those people, I'd bet 90% of those out of 100 are in that ball game and understanding the 5 people that are around them the most or most influential on them, and those are the people that make things happen. I'm very confident in that.
So I want to pivot now back to your family life, and we've had a really great discussion on your businesses, and this has been a great conversation. I've learned a lot. So I know you're big, and you've alluded to this too. Like you never missed. You have 2 boys, heavily involved in sports. You work a lot, but you never miss their events.
So my dad worked a lot growing up, and you know, it. I don't fault him for that he missed a lot of the stuff. But I wrestled, and where I grew up, we had to drive 2 hours. Now, don't get me wrong, my dad still drove me to a lot of those things, and with my mom and everything else. He was around. It wasn't like he wasn't around. Like my dad was a great dad, but like he instilled some things in me, like drive, work ethic, and no matter what, if you make a promise, you hold that promise no matter what, right? And I promised myself that growing up I was going to be different. And then when we started when we started logistics, it didn't maybe grow as fast as it should because I coached my sons. I was an assistant coach in football. I was an assistant coach in wrestling. I was supposed to, like, my son 1 year, my oldest son. So I have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old, sophomore and a senior. And third grade basketball, like, never interested in my kids really playing basketball because I wanted them to wrestle, and they both wrestled. We were starting wrestling that year. But my wife put them in basketball. It was great. It was basically about the same time that we had just started logistics, and maybe we were a year or 2 into it, but whatever, how that works out. But it was third grade. He's on this basketball team, and I'm working, and this is when I knew things had to change. And my wife comes back from the first basketball practice, and she goes, "Justin," because I was already coaching with T-ball and everything else, like all that stuff, and coach pitch baseball at that point, and then into travel baseball. But and she goes, "Man, it's really bad. Their practices are really, really bad." Like, I'm like, "How bad could it be?" She goes to the second practice, and she tells me the same thing. She comes back in third practice, and she's like, "Justin, you're taking them to the next practice. There's literally one kid wearing snow boots. There's another kid wearing soccer shoes, and they're playing basketball." And I'm like, "Okay." So we go to the practice, and where I go to the practice, I'm there, and I ask the coach, and he's 90% deaf, but the guy's got like 6 kids, and they're all running around, and it's crazy. And I go to him, I'm like, "Listen, do you need help?" He goes, "Oh my God, that would be great." Yeah. I'm like, "Okay." And it wound up that he then just kind of walked away, and I became the head coach. And the interesting thing is, we ended up taking that team, and they were undefeated, and we won the Sterling Heights championship, blah blah blah. And we're playing in the championship game, and a kid that had, like, before I even was there for practice, I'd like moved teams because mom was so mad that and I get it, like, it wasn't good. And she comes up to me after the game, like, "Where did you come from? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, my wife kept telling me I had to come help because it was really bad." And she's like, "Well, that's not fair." I'm like, "What's not fair?" She goes, "Well, if I would have known that you were going to coach and you were going to do this with these kids, well, then I would have stayed." And I said, "Well, I apologize. I own a business, and I stepped in when I could." And that, what I'm getting at is, that was the moment when I knew, like, baseball I was going to do, like, no matter what. And but I knew I had to, like, not miss their stuff. Like, I knew it at that point. I was 100% in, and there was no missing. If I missed one of my kids, it was because I was at the other kid's stuff. That's the only time I missed. So like tonight or yesterday, I was at my oldest son's baseball game and my wife was at her younger son's baseball game, and we'll swap, So, but I coached both boys in travel baseball. So I was coaching 80, 90 games a summer,
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is, they're each playing 40-ish and then having practices and then, maintaining fields. And, I helped coach their wrestling. We started an elite wrestling group that worked out really well. And, it was important to me that they knew that I was there for them. It was, again, I get 18 years. That's what I get. I get 18 years with them. And at every step of the way, I wanted to be by their side. Now that we're coming to the end of that, now you're starting to see, the difference. Like I said, and 2020 when they weren't, playing football and they weren't playing baseball and they weren't doing anything, right? I had the opportunity to work like crazy hours. And I took advantage and we grew. So it'd be interesting to see when my younger one gets out and I have all this time and I don't know what to do with myself. It'd be interesting to see what we can accomplish, Paul.
Maybe you go back to golf.
I hope to get back to golf. I'd love to. So maybe we'll go play. Exactly.
Yeah, we'll go play together. Yeah, that'd be good. Well, Hey, Justin, I know that this has been an incredible conversation. I know I only have you for a finite period of time. So I want to close with my closing question that I ask all of my guests on the podcast is, and you've done a really great job of talking about your kids and family. So hopefully this will be a good, easy question for you. But what is the best thing about being a parent? What is the best thing about being a parent?
I got maybe the best compliment I've ever gotten in my entire life. Maybe, I think it's been a little over a week, maybe 2 weeks ago. So my oldest son, Noah, he, one of his assistant baseball coaches at the high school was like, Noah has taken to this guy pretty well. And he's a younger guy. And somehow he came into Brighter Performance and started to ask Noah a bunch of questions about it. And Noah's like, he started asking Noah about working for me. What do you think your dad would, be open to me working for him? And Noah goes, my dad's always open to people working for him, but you have to understand my dad. My dad is very simple when it comes to it. He goes, if you work hard for him, he will take care of you every single time. And it doesn't sound like much, but to me, my son understands at 17 years old that hard work will get you wherever you want to be. And if you are willing to work hard and know that that can then translate to whatever you want in life, and he has done that on the baseball field, in his physical training, in his mental training, in his everything. And that wasn't necessarily a compliment, I guess, but it was a compliment to me. And that's the only way that I heard that. And my kids understand that. My younger son has started his own reselling of shoes business and is making really good money. And he understands that. He's 15 years old. So I guess the biggest thing for me is the fact that I know that my kids understand work ethic. I know that my kids are understanding the business world. I know that my kids are understanding life and not just school, right? Where I think so many people are just school. I think I have passed the bus test now with my kids, where if God forbid I get hit by a bus, I could leave this earth today and know that my boys and my wife will 100% be okay. 100%. Like I have no fear of that anymore. And that was always a fear of mine, with them. It's because they mean so much to me. It's like, what would happen? Would they be ready? Will they, that is no longer a fear. So that's kind of where I'm at in my life. Like I'm just in such a great spot, like with everything. It's amazing.
Well, that has been one of the most unique answers that we've gotten to that question. And I think it totally fits your personality. And I think it's a great way to wrap up our conversation. Justin, I can't thank you enough for being on the Emotional Balance Sheet podcast. And I'm sure this will be just one of many conversations we have from here on out. So I look forward to many more conversations to come.
Thank you, Paul. honored to be on here today, and thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and if you ever have multiple guests on and we want to have a little panel discussion, I'd love to do something like that. So we could panel it out. So
all right, that sounds like a great idea. I'm always open to new ideas for the show for sure.
Awesome, thanks, Paul.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Emotional Balance Sheet Podcast. Please visit tamacapital.com to subscribe to this podcast or to connect with certified financial planner and registered investment advisor Paul Fenner of Tama Capital. And please join us again next time on the Emotional Balance Sheet Podcast.